So, Jamie Jones, please tell people out there the plot of your movie Jackdaw.
Well, okay, so the plot of the movie is a retired veteran from the British Army comes home to look after his brother. Something has recently happened to his mom. We do not know what. And in the trope fashion of these trash lad films, he wants to get away from his hometown and try and build a better future. So he takes a job that he probably shouldn't take, and it ends up descending into a night of chaos. In there, basically like going on a night out in Northern England. It's like you're out a night out. You think probably it'll end up, it'll end well for you, but actually by doing so, it ends up like you definitely should have just stayed in the house.
Okay, you just used a term that I've never heard, but I feel like I intuitively understand. You said trash lad. Can you explain that a little
Crash
bit more?
lad. Do you know, I actually did not know this term myself. Someone said this at a fantastic fest, and they were like, you did it, you hit all the correct tropes of a trash lad story. And I was like, well, thank God for that, because I had no idea what a trash lad was before you said that. So I started looking it up, and apparently it is like, it's basically a Jack type character, returns home sort of from maybe war, tries to better himself, and ends up like descending into the crime world. Basically, that's a trash lad.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And you had fun at Fantastic Fest?
Wow, it was so much fun. It's
Oh,
my first. I'm gonna have to be deadly honest here. It's my first film festival I've ever been to.
oh wow.
Um, so like yeah. So please don't judge me that the first one I went to is like just for my own movie. It was not that reason at all. I've just never got around to it. I've just been working solidly for like the last
Oh yeah.
5 years, unfortunately. So yeah, it was a really good festival to kick the film off, actually. Like, and I sort of got that response from a lot of people when we got into it. There were a lot of people who friends of mine who do travel around to a lot of film festivals. They were like, that's a really great one for Jackdaw, and just a great festival overall. And the response was brilliant, and everybody there was like, you feel like it's a festival where people go to enjoy movies, not to like destroy movies. So that's you know what I mean,
Right.
because you can
Oh yeah.
definitely
Oh
imagine
yeah.
there are some
I
festivals like
know
that.
the type. I know the
Yeah.
vibe.
Totally. So it was like, yeah, I loved it, and it was definitely the best home for it, and that was its world premiere. So there we go. That'll always be the case.
But it's not going to be your last festival. What's the next one you're going to?
We're at Sitges this weekend, so that's
Nice.
the next festival that we got into. So hopefully, be traveling out there at the weekend to go and check that out. And that's in like down in southern Spain.
It's not the worst way to live, right?
Well, exactly, and I've in that sense, obviously the actors' strike is still happening at the moment, so I'm not working on the show that I was currently working on. So it means that it's lined up with I can get to travel around a bit with the movie, which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So I can't complain about that.
Yeah, so you have done a lot of high profile TV, but this is your first feature, correct? Tell me about the transition and the advantage you have having done all these big shows.
Well, look, I mean, the advantage I've had from doing the big shows is that I've had a lot of experience, and I've been in many different scenarios. So, like, the thing about Jack as a debut, it's probably quite technically challenging, like based on all the kind of big set pieces and stuff that it had. But I've done similar stuff to all of them over the years. So it's like I had this sort of toolbox of skills that I could kind of draw on. And the thing is, although it's like big high end stuff that I've worked on, it's surprising how little money goes onto the screen, really. Do you know what I mean with these things? It's like actually
Okay.
like there's so much stuff behind the screen that needs to be paid for. By the time you get to the screen, often it's like, how am I going to do this like with not a lot of money still, and like to maximum quality? And I knew that if I could do that with Jackdaw with a lot less, then hopefully we'd make a movie that looked like a big polished thing that was not massively, we didn't have a load of resources to pool in. But I fortunately had a crew that had worked with me for a long time. We had the same sensibility. We do a lot with not a lot, even on the big stuff. So that was the biggest transition, was sort of going down right back to the basics, and kind of, if I'd made Jackdaw like 5 years ago, it would have been a different movie. But like having that experience from the TV, making it for probably the same amount of money I would have done a debut for even back then, meant that we could like really kind of bring all the bells and whistles to the table. We all knew what we were doing, kind of.
Cool. How would we talked about the plot of the movie, but like remove that somehow. Tell me about the vibe of the movie.
Yeah, well, I was just answering this question a minute ago, like, because it got me thinking about it. And for me, Jackdaw was never meant to be an action film. Like, it's not,
Hmm.
people that's its USP now. Everyone's like, it's an action film. But I was saying
Right.
it was almost more, it was a Western. Like, it was almost like a
Ooh.
cyber Western, set like going back to the spaghetti Westerns of like the
Nice.
Clint Eastwood era. It's like he's the man with no name, like returning to town. We like try and figure out
Mhm.
who he is. And really, if you watch those movies, those westerns, like they were always about the atmosphere, not the. And they had action in them, like they had
Hmm.
shootouts, horse chases, and they had all kinds of stuff. But it was really about like the brooding, mysterious atmosphere that like Sergio Leone built into those, like that for me was like this kind of I find those films like so creepy and eerie, and then in Jackdaw, like sequences like where he sees the horse like on the horizon as like a silhouette and you just hear his like poncho blowing in the wind. Like those were the moments that I was more interested in, like, that building. And I try and do that in a lot of the TV stuff. I definitely feel like my thing is like leaning into heavy atmospheres, like
Hmm.
of worlds that don't quite exist, and you kind of try and make people feel something in them. Like action is kind of like the end of a sequence for me. Do you know what I mean? Like everything else
Okay.
is building up to that moment. So that's kind of what I thought of it as.
I like that the helmet. The helmet sort of adds to the intrigue you're talking about, sort of the mysterious vibe.
Mm.
He never
Yeah,
takes it
well,
off.
it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to, you don't want people to lose connection from your protagonist with that, but like Ollie has these sort of like incredibly emotive eyes that he does so much with. And one of the things that we were really cautious of with it is always making sure that we lit him properly so that when we were looking at him, even in the helmet, like you could quite easily not light a scene properly and it ends up just shadowing his face and you don't, but we always made sure that we had something in there. We had an eye light, and so when you're looking at him, you're really getting in there. He's got these amazing
Hmm.
blue eyes. It's like, you need to kind of really feel what he's thinking, and he can do that with just his eyes. Like he was really great at that. There's a lot of actors who would have just been a guy in a helmet, but he ends up being these mysterious, like he's this enigmatic figure that you're like, I want to know more about him, and then part of it is that it's like you find that's probably why the Mandalorian does so well. It's like, it's kind of like, I
True.
want what's under there. Like, I mean, it makes such a successful TV show with a guy with a helmet on for like the entire series, but it works, and it's like, you know, so that in a way, like, so I suppose the Mandalorian probably gave me the courage actually to be like, yeah, he can
Huh.
wear a helmet for a lot of the movie.
Makes a lot of sense now. Well, Jamie, thanks a lot for your time. I really like talking to you, and I encourage people to check out your film Jackdaw. What genre do you want to tackle next in a feature?
Oh, that's a very good question. Obviously, everyone's coming at me being like, can you do an action film about a guy driving around in a car or a motorbike? And part of me wants to kind of lean away from that, do something totally different. I've got a kind of Thelma and Louise road movie kind of thing in the works a little bit. So maybe that.
All right. Well, good luck, and we'll stay tuned.
Thank you very much.